Hey, welcome to statistics. We are going to talk about organizing data in chapter 2. Chapter 2.1 is about one way to organize data, which are frequency distributions and histograms. So where you are in this situation is you have a question that you want to answer. You've decided what your best method of surveying a sample is. You're using one of your techniques that we learned in chapter 1, and you've got some data that now you want to organize so that you can kind of see what the trends are. One of the advantages of histograms and frequency distributions is that you can see the patterns of the data, where it's easy to see where most of the numbers lie. So when you have just a list of data like we have here on the screen, it's kind of hard to see, like, okay, where is most of the numbers, where is the data heavier or lighter. And I've kept the number kind of short just for practical reasons. We're going to work with these numbers. We don't want a bunch, but usually you don't just have this many numbers, you have like hundreds of numbers. So organization becomes a big issue. So first, we're going to start by creating a frequency distribution. I'm going to make you a list of steps, and you just follow that steps and you'll be in business. So the first thing that you want to do with your frequency distribution is you want to enter your data into your calculator. So I'm going to walk you through the TI and ClassCalc. If you're using one or the other, you can fast forward through the part that doesn't apply to you. Okay, so we'll start with the TI. Where you're going to go to enter data is into this button right here that says Stat. A lot of what we're going to be doing this semester is in that button. So you hit there, and the first thing that comes up is an option to edit. And that's what we want to do. You want to hit enter on number 1 and edit. And once that happens, you will get a screen. And that didn't square out for me like it usually does. Let's try that again. Oh, that's fun. Okay, whatever. That's okay. We can live. Whoa. So list 1, list 2, list 3, and if you scroll over, there's multiple lists, so you can have lots of different data sets going. The first thing that we need to do is talk about how to clear a list, because you may have numbers in your lists already as you're looking. So what you want to do is you want to use these arrow buttons to go up here and highlight L1. So you're going to move so that the black blinky box is on list 1. And then you're going to hit clear and the down button. That's how you clear out a list. You're saying, I want you to clear everything under here. Now, this is the delete button right here. You do not want to use that. If you use that, you'll actually delete the list, which we can fix, but that's not what you want to, you'll actually delete the whole L1 column. So it's clear and then the down button to clear. And then once you're done with that, you put your black box on the first entry and you just start typing in the data that you see in your list. Okay, so why don't you do that? And then I'll show you what to do next. I'm going to jump over to ClassCalc and show you how to build a list here. I already have it typed in just for speed's sake, but let's walk through how we do that. You click into the first box right here so that your cursor is there. And then you are going to have to name your list. You can name it whatever you want, any letter you want. I picked A. The letters are these light gray in the corner of the boxes, C, A, B, C, D, E, F. And how ClassCalc works is what you see in the middle of the button is what you get if you tap the button. What you see in the corner is what you get when you tap and hold. So what you want to do is come over here. I named mine A. So you're going to tap and hold the 7 key, and then an A will pop up. Okay. Then you're going to hit equals. Equals is down here in the left-hand corner. And then when you're doing a list, you want square brackets. So these are round brackets right here, the round parentheses. The square brackets are in the lower right-hand corner. So again, you want to tap and hold the square bracket, and then enter your numbers. So then you can see that this tells you there's 21 items in the list. I always like to just check that and make sure that that's accurate. Make sure you didn't miss any numbers. Okay. So that's the first step that you're going to do. The second step in making a frequency distribution is you're going to sort your data. All right. So how do we do that? On the TI, it's in the same menu. You're going to go into stat. Only now it's going to be the second option down. It says edit, and then it says sort A. So you're going to hit enter on sort A, and then that will jump you to a screen. And it will say, it will just have your home screen, and it'll say sort A and your parentheses. And what it's waiting for there is which list that you edited do you want to sort. So if you entered your data in that first column, that's the L1 column, and you'll want to enter L1 here. Now, where is the L1? If you look on here, in blue above each of these keys is L1, L2, L3, L4. And the way this calculator works is everything in blue gets accessed by hitting the blue button and then that key. Everything in green gets accessed by hitting the green button and that key. So the way we get L1 is we're going to hit the blue button, that second function, and then the 1 button, and that gives us L1. And you should see after you hit that it goes L1. And then you hit enter. Enter is kind of like your equals on a TI, and then it'll say done. So now if you go back to your list, now recall where our list is, you're going to hit stat and then edit, and that allows you to view your list. Then that's going to kick you over here to L1, L2, L3. Now you should see this list in order from smallest to biggest. Okay, so that's how you put your list in order. That's a huge tool, because if you've got a big data set, the hardest thing is putting it in order. So that's a big help for that. If you're on Class Calc, once you have your data set, then you're going to come down here to the next level, and you're going to hit stat right here. And then you're going to hit sort right here. And then it's saying that it's the same as the TI. It's saying, well, what do you want to sort? What's your list name? That's why you have to name your list, because you can have multiple lists going. So I want to sort list A. So I tap and hold the 7, and then it gives me right here the list in order. Now I happen to type it in order, so there's no change, but yours will be different because you probably typed it in the way I had it written, and then it'll sort it in order, and then you can work off of that. Okay. All right, so next step, once we have the data in order, is we want to find what we call the range. The range of the data is the biggest number, which we sometimes call the maximum, minus the smallest number, which we call a minimum. Okay, so I'm throwing some vocab words out at you, and you want to take note of those so that now when I say max or min, you know biggest, smallest. When I say range, you know that means the biggest minus the smallest. Okay, so depending on whichever calculator you're operating on, your data is now in order. And so you're going to scroll through your list and find your biggest and your smallest, and then we're going to subtract the two. So if I go in, I see that my smallest number is 12 and my biggest number is 60. So I'm going to go 60 minus 12, and that's going to give me my range of data. So I get 48. Okay. Now, later on in the course, I could just ask you what is the range. And so you should be able to find that. The next thing that you're going to do is you're going to divide the range by the number of classes. Now, this is another kind of vocab word that I'm throwing in the mix. Classes are how many, the classes are the number of groups. Like what we're going to do is we're going to take this data and we're going to put it in groups. How many of those groups do you want? Now, how many you want depends on how big your data set is. If you've got 100 data points, then you might want more classes, because the idea is what we're going to do is we're going to have a group, like say, how many numbers are between 0 and 30. And then you're going to tell me how many of those there are. Now, if you have a huge data set and your class is too wide, like you're going 0 to 30, you're going to have like a ton of numbers in there, and then it kind of loses meaning. So instead, if I had a huge data set, I might say, well, let's make the first grouping 0 to 10, a smaller kind of window for your groups. And so depending on how much data you want, and as you do these, you'll kind of get a feel for that. You can pick different numbers. Now, typically, in this class, because I don't give you huge data sets, we say we want like 5 or 6 groups. That's kind of a typical number. And I will often, if we're doing a problem in class, tell you how many classes we want, so that we're all doing it the same and we can check our answers. Okay. But in real life, you get to choose how many classes you have. So what we're going to say is we're going to say, let's take 5 classes. Okay, so that means that I'm going to take 48 and I'm going to divide it by 5. So when I do that on my calculator, I get 9.6. Now, here's the deal. You always on frequency distributions have to overestimate, because if you take a number like 9.6 and you round it down to 9, what's going to happen is you might not get enough classes to include all the numbers. So we always have to make the classes bigger than we need so that all of the numbers fit in there. So what I'm going to write in here, and I'm going to do it in yellow because this is often forgot, you are going to always round up, always. No matter what this decimal point is, you are always going to round up. Even if it's 0, even if it's 9.0, you're going to round up to the nearest whole number. So I'm going to round this number up to 10. And this number is what we call our class width. So that means that my range of numbers for my class is 10. Okay. The 5th step is we are going to start at the first data point and create classes. And we do that by adding the class width to the first number. Okay, now that language is a little awkward. Let me just show you what that means mathematically. I think it'll make more sense. We're going to create a chart, and we're going to start by defining our classes. So here's our classes. Okay. The first class is going to start at our first data point. Now, our lowest data point is 12. Okay. Now I'm going to take that 12 and I'm going to add my class width to it. So 12 plus 10, that number is going to go here, 22. Okay, that's going to be the start of my next class. Then I'm going to do that again. 22 plus 10, that's going to be the start of my next class. So this is going to be 32. Then do it again. 32 plus 10 goes here. This is 42. Okay, and one more time because we're creating 5 classes. So I'm at 4, I need one more. 42 plus 10 is going to be 52. Okay. Now, how do I tell what the range is? This is going to go 12 to, well, if the next class starts at 22, then the previous class is going to end at 21. Okay, you just back off by 1. If this class is 32, then I'm going to back off by 1 and make this 31. This class is 42, then I'm going to back off by 1 and make this 41. And you can probably start to see the pattern. This is 21, 31, 41. This is going to be 51. This is 61. All right, so these are the classes. And what a frequency distribution is going to tell us is how many data points do I have in each class? So I'm going to erase this part here. So we don't, this part is not part of the chart. So you don't need to have that. It was just a helper, okay, for you. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go to our data set and we're going to count how many data points are between 12 and 21, including 12 and 21. Okay, so let's go do that. We're going to look at our list. We're going 12 to 21. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 values between 12 and 21. Okay, so I'm going back to my histogram or my frequency chart, and I'm going to go, what did I say? 11. Oh my goodness. Yes, 11. Okay. My next class is the numbers from 22 to 31. So now I'm going to go to my data chart and count how many values between 22 and 31. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so this entry is going to be 4. Now I'm going 32 to 41. 32, 1, 2, 3. And then 42 to 51. 1. And it's okay to have 0. Sometimes you have 0. And then 52 to 61. So that's going to be 1, 2 values. Okay. And this is the frequency. Frequency is just a fancy way of saying how many times do those values occur. Okay. So now what this does for you is you can kind of see where the bulk of the data is. You're going, oh, let's see, these are pretty high numbers. I would look at these and say, hey, most of the data is between like 12 and 31 or 12 and 41. And these 40s, 50s, 60s are less likely to occur. So now I can make kind of an intelligent statement about my data, whereas before it might have just been a jumble of numbers. Okay. So that's a frequency distribution. Now, we also can calculate 2 other things that I want to just briefly go through. Oh, before I do that, let me show you a little math notation. This right here is a sigma. And what that means in math land is it means add up the numbers. So if you see that at the bottom, it just means add up all your frequency numbers. Now, if you do that, think about it. What do you think you should get? You're adding up all the frequency of all of these numbers. Your total should be how many numbers you have. That's a great check to make sure that you didn't miss anything and all that. So I'm going to do that really quickly, check myself. I'm going 11 plus 4 plus 3 plus 1 plus 2. And that's 21. And that's how many data points we had. So you'll see on your homework, sometimes it'll say sum of F, that's the sum of the frequencies, and that's going to be 21. So down here is kind of like our totals, if you will, if we're making a chart. That's what this means. Okay. All right. What else can we calculate? We can calculate the relative frequency. The relative frequency is a fancy way of saying we just want to know what's the probability Remember, we talked about probability at the beginning of the course. What is the probability that this number occurs? So the way we do probability is how many ways can this happen over the total? So this is a real simple formula. I'm going to write it up here. It's F, which is the frequency. That's this guy, divided by N. Now, N in this course is always the total number of data points. So that's 21 in my case. That's how many entries there are. So my relative frequency here is going to be 11 over 21, 4 over 21. I just wrote 20, sorry. 3 over 21, 1 over 21, and 2 over 21. And typically our relative frequencies, we want those in decimal form. So the way that you do that, you just divide it out. 11 divided by 21, that's, I'm going to round to the 100th, 0.52. And then I get 4 divided by 21, that's going to be 0.19. 3 is 0.14. 1 is 0.05 if we round correctly, and 2 is 0.10. Now, what should these sum to if we say sum of the frequency divided by n? Well, if you take all the probabilities of an event and add them up, they should total up to 100% or everything totaled. So this should be 1, which is 100% in decimal form. Now, because I rounded, you might add those up and you might be off by just a little, like they might add up to 0.99 or 1.01. But that's just a rounding error. They should land roughly close to 1, which is your total probability. And this is the breakdown of each. So you could say now, you could say, hey, there's roughly a 52% chance of you getting a data point between 12 and 21, which is even more information and maybe helpful. The last column in this is called cumulative frequency. Okay. And what that is it's just a running total of your frequency. So the first entry is always going to be your first frequency value. Your next one's going to be those first 2 added. So it's a running total. You're just adding up as you go. So I'm going 11 plus 4 plus 3 plus 1 plus 2. I'm bouncing down this column and adding them up as I go. So 15 plus 3 is 18, 18 plus 1 is 19, and 19 plus 2 is 21. This should always be your end value because it's totaling them up as we go. They total up to 21. All right, so that is all the information that you potentially are going to be asked on a frequency chart. In the next video, we will talk about histograms. So I will see you then.